You may already know that FIFA is evil, but if you're not sure, we'll show you in a second, with just 7 reasons. Let's get started. Number 7. Forced alcohol sales. One of the biggest sponsors of the World Cup is Budweiser, who of course wants to sell beer at World Cup games. But back in 2003, Brazil banned the sale of alcohol in stadiums because too many people had died from excessive drinking, stupidity, or violence. The ban was simply a matter of health and safety. FIFA Secretary General Jerome Valk's response to the attempt to save lives was, "Alcoholic drinks are part of the FIFA World Cup, so we'll have them. Excuse me if I sound a little arrogant, but we aren't going to negotiate about that." As a result, the Brazilian government lifted the alcohol ban, and the Budweiser law was passed and signed by the country's president. And although alcohol is completely banned in Qatar, they'll bend the convictions to accommodate FIFA and its sponsors. Number 6. Unsustainable, wasteful stadiums. To host the World Cup, the host country must build stadiums. However, many of these stadiums are built in places where they cannot be maintained after the World Cup. Of the 6 stadiums built for the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, only 2 can be preserved, and the others could be closed. In Brazil, FIFA built a stadium in Manaus, which is deep in the Amazon. With no major roads leading there, tons of stainless steel were shipped from Portugal and floated down the Amazon to get supplies. Only 4 World Cup games were played there, but over $300 million was spent on the 42,000-seat stadium. Games at the old Manaus Stadium, which was demolished because it didn't meet FIFA regulations, drew no more than 1,000 spectators. That brings us back to Qatar, which is planning to build 12 stadiums. But after the World Cup, many of these stadiums will probably never be used again. Number 5. Horrendous working conditions. Speaking of stadiums, because so many need to be built, workers find themselves working in rushed, dangerous conditions. 3 people died during construction of the stadium in Manaus, which is almost 1 for every game played there. As bad as that is, it's nothing compared to the working conditions in Qatar. More than 1,000 migrant workers have died since construction began in 2012. If conditions don't change, 4,000 workers from Nepal, India, and Bangladesh are expected to lose their lives. One of the many targets of criticism is the kafala sponsorship system. In order for someone to work in Qatar, they need a sponsor, which is often their employer. The employer takes care of the visa and often holds the passport once the person starts working. This creates a form of virtual slavery that workers cannot escape. Number 4, they don't pay taxes in the host country. One thing to know about hosting FIFA is that they don't pay income tax when they come to a country. Their argument is that it's for a non-profit organization that brings businesses, tourists, and new infrastructure to a country. We have already pointed out the shortcomings of stadium construction. While it's true that the World Cup attracts tourists and businesses, the numbers don't add up. Brazil spent nearly $14 billion on the World Cup, and it's unlikely it'll ever get that money back. Germany has taken in about $5 billion since the 2006 World Cup, and that's after investing $12 billion. South Africa has only recovered about $513 million of its $6 billion investment. The last 2 hosts haven't even recovered half of their investments. FIFA, on the other hand, it made $4 billion in Brazil, and now it'll simply move on to another country. Number 3. Corrupt Executive Board. FIFA's Executive Board consists of 24 members. They form the top level of the federation, and of those 24 men, 12 have been accused of corruption. Among the best known is Mohammed bin Hammam, who was the president of the Asian Soccer Confederation for 9 years and served on the Executive Council for 15 years. In the 2011 FIFA presidential election, bin Hammam didn't support President Sepp Blatter as he had in the previous 2 elections. As a result, FIFA launched an investigation into bin Hammam, after which he was charged with bribing soccer officials for votes. He was brought before FIFA's Ethics Committee and banned for life. Jack Warner was elected vice president of the Confederation of North, Central America, and Caribbean Association Soccer in 1983 and served as president of CONCACAF from 1990 to 2001. He was also named as one of FIFA's vice presidents in 1997 and was accused of corruption as early as the 1980s. A major scandal was the sale of tickets for the 2002 World Cup on the black market. Even worse, The Trinidad and Tobago Soccer Federation donated money to Jack Warner for aid in Haiti after the 2010 hurricane. Of the donation, $740,000 is untraceable, but Warner denied knowing about it. He resigned June 20, 2011, and FIFA's investigation was dropped. He repaid about $2 million, but it's likely he stole much more. Number 2. Corrupt president. Sepp Blatter has been president of FIFA for 4 years, which is a remarkable achievement considering he's as classy as your racist great uncle who gets drunk at every family gathering. His best moments include suggesting female soccer players wear shorter shorts and lower-cut shirts to attract more spectators, and interrupting a moment of silence for Nelson Mandela after 11 seconds. You may wonder how someone like him could reach such a high position, but if you've been paying attention, you already know the answer. He bought votes and took bribes. During his first election campaign, he received donations, and the Emir of Qatar lent him a jet so he could visit voters to whom he handed envelopes filled with money. Of course, if this was all in furtherance of the beautiful game, perhaps fans would be a bit more forgiving. However, he seems to care very little about the sport. For example, to win favor with voters in smaller countries, he uses their local referees instead of the much better ones from larger countries. He was also strictly against the goal line technology, which only changed after a series of controversial goals were scored in the run-up to the 2014 World Cup. Despite all this, Blatter is up for re-election in 2015. Number 1. FIFA's reserve. One thing FIFA officials make clear is that it's a non-profit organization, yet it's one of the richest nonprofits in the world. In 2013, it had $1.4 billion in reserves. That may not seem like a bad thing considering that it's neither owned by a government nor is it a charity. However, when you consider that Brazil and South Africa, both struggling with poverty, have lost or will lose money from hosting the World Cup, you can't help but think that some of their money could have gone to a good cause. Especially when you consider how much of it probably came from bribes and other kickbacks. Yes, FIFA is allowed to do what they want with their money, but should they have over $1 billion in their account while leaving a trail of devastation everywhere they go? This shows how greedy, insane, and self-centered this non-profit organization really is. And with that, you know all you can about the FIFA and their weird, corrupt, and maybe even outright evil ways. If you know more, you can always tell us about them down in the comments, but for now, we are out. Of course, we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.